There is a hill where heaven and earth are believed to touch. A hill where, for thousands of years, humanity has built temples and torn them down again. A hill where prayers rise like smoke and blood soaks the soil. That hill is Jerusalem, the sacred center of the world. It is not large, not wealthy, not positioned on some great trade route. Yet across centuries, kings and prophets, crusaders and conquerors, empires and exiles, all converged here. Why? Because this place is not only geography. It is symbol, archetype, mirror. It is the place where humanity looks for God, and in looking finds its deepest rivalries. The Jewish people call it Zion, city of David, home of the temple where the divine presence once dwelled. Christians call it the place of the crucifixion and resurrection, where the veil between life and death was torn. Muslims revere it as the place where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven, the rock beneath the dome shining as a testimony of connection between human and divine. Three great faiths, one small hill, each carrying the weight of eternity. Jerusalem has burned more than 40 times in recorded history. The Babylonians leveled it, the Romans crushed it, the Crusaders slaughtered for it, and modern armies still clash around its stones. And yet, after every destruction, people return. They rebuild walls, raise shrines, plant flags, lift prayers. There is something in the psyche of humanity that refuses to let this place fade. To lose Jerusalem would feel like losing the axis of meaning itself. It is as though the city is not only stone and soil, but a spiritual compass that humanity cannot stop fighting over. Why does this matter to us today, in the age of satellites and global markets, where empires have given way to nation-states? Because the archetype still burns. When rockets fall in Gaza, when soldiers patrol the old city, when processions march to holy sites, the world does not watch with the same distant eye it gives to other wars. It trembles. It debates. It takes sides. People far away feel their identities stirred, their faiths threatened or affirmed, their own traumas reflected. The pattern is ancient. The Jewish people carry an archetype of exile and return, bound by covenant to this land, convinced that God once placed his name here forever. The Christian imagination holds Jerusalem as the theater of salvation, where history turned and eternity broke into time. The Muslim heart honors it as a sacred point of ascent, woven into daily prayers and the vast memory of a civilization. Each of these traditions sees the city not only as stone, but as destiny. And destiny, once claimed, rarely yields easily. But beneath the religious layers lies a deeper human truth. We are drawn to centers. Every culture has its axis mundi, its sacred mountain or temple, its point of contact between earth and heaven. For the ancient Babylonians, it was the ziggurat. For the Hindus, Mount Meru. For the Mayans, the Pyramid Temple. For the Abrahamic family, that axis is Jerusalem. And when humanity projects its longing for transcendence onto a single point, conflict follows, because transcendence cannot be divided like land. It either belongs to everyone or becomes a wound. Look closely, and you see that the struggle for Jerusalem is not really about land. It is about identity, belonging, the fear of being erased from the story of God. For Jews, centuries of exile taught them that without a home, survival is precarious. For Palestinians, displacement etched into their memory that without recognition, dignity dissolves. For Christians, whose spiritual home often lies elsewhere, the city still pulls as the place of origin, the womb of their faith. Each looks at the same stones and sees a different mirror. And so the wars keep returning. Crusaders came believing they were liberating the holy city. Zionists returned believing they were fulfilling prophecy. Palestinians resist believing they are guarding their ancestral inheritance. Empires rose and fell, each convinced that by holding Jerusalem, they held eternity in their grasp. And yet eternity slips through hands like sand. No one truly holds the sacred, it holds us. This is why every attempt to solve the conflict with politics alone falters. Peace treaties may carve borders, but the archetype of the sacred center resists neat lines. It is not only a matter of security arrangements or economic incentives, it is a matter of spirit. Until the archetype is acknowledged, until the symbolic weight is seen, solutions remain fragile. Because what is at stake here is not just land. It is the story of who humanity believes itself to be before God. But what if the archetype could be reframed? What if Jerusalem were not the prize of one people, but the shared inheritance of all who seek the divine? What if the hill where heaven and earth meet was never meant to be owned, but to remind us that heaven belongs to no one nation, no one religion, no one story? In the mystic traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there are whispers of this truth, that God is not confined to a temple, nor to a church, nor to a mosque, but is present wherever hearts turn sincerely toward the divine. The sacred center is not a stone, but a state of being. When the prophets spoke of Jerusalem, they did not only speak of walls and gates. They spoke of justice rolling down like waters, of swords beaten into plowshares, of a house of prayer for all nations. They dreamed of a city where the presence of God was measured not in exclusive ownership, but in the flourishing of compassion. Perhaps the true prophecy of Jerusalem is not about who holds it, but about what it inspires in us. So as we look upon this land, scarred and sanctified, we must see both the history and the archetype. We must see why Jews cannot let go, why Palestinians cannot be erased, why Christians and Muslims feel their story tied to it, why the whole world trembles when conflict ignites there. And we must also see that beneath the rivalry lies a possibility, that the sacred center could become not a battlefield, but a mirror. A mirror in which humanity sees its own longing for God, its own fear of loss, its own capacity for violence, but also its own potential for peace. Jerusalem is a paradox, the city that divides because it is holy, the city that could unite because it is holy. To fight for it is to repeat an old cycle, to share it is to fulfill a deeper prophecy. The choice is not written in stone, the story is still alive. And the sacred center still waits, not to be conquered, but to be remembered as the place where humanity can meet itself, and perhaps meet God.